from the Signature Bank Studios.
Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560, The Answer.
AM 560, The Answer, Chicago's Morning Answer. Chris Crockett for Dan Proft. He's back tomorrow. 312-642-5600 is our number, 312-642-5600. I very much looking forward to, and have been looking forward to, interviewing retired former chief of police in Riverside, Chief Weitzel, Thomas Weitzel. Thank you very much for joining us, Chief. We appreciate you very much.
Hey, good morning, Chris, and I'm so happy to be on. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for standing up for our officers. Being a former officer and a former chief of police, standing up is very important. We need people to call this garbage out, this horrible garbage that's been happening to our officers, particularly in Chicago, but all over the country and all over the entire state of Illinois. Boy, there's so much. Tell me this. There's a headline in the Chicago Sun-Times. Traffic stops drop sharply, but race gap remains wide. CPD vehicle stops plunge by 45%, but officers 4 times more likely to pull over black Latino drivers than white ones. And it's right next to some of our officers in a murder trial for those involved with some officers being shot. Tell me what your reaction to this whole headline in the Chicago Sun-Times was, what it is.
Disgusting. That front page was about as disgusting a front page of a major metropolitan newspaper as I can process. It ran a story that basically wiped every single Chicago police officer as racist because of traffic stop data, which the data itself is completely false. And then next to it is an article about a Chicago police officer killed in the line of duty in the current trial going on.
Right.
And it chooses to quote the defense attorney saying it could have, it's a mistake, or he was afraid, or there was something that drove him to shoot this uniformed Chicago police officer. I couldn't believe I read it.
So it shows you, doesn't it, how the media and leftists in the media and leftists in general see our police officers, doesn't it?
Oh, for sure. It's this mantra and this rhetoric that's constantly out there, which is anti-police. Started with defund the police. Started after the George Floyd incident, obviously in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Everyone knows that. And if they think defund the police is gone, it's not. Defund the police is now just gutting the police through legislation, and then certain media outlets that want to make, they want to win the Pulitzer Prize every time by doing hit pieces on law enforcement. And if you notice in a lot of those media reports, they never interview police officials to get their side of whatever story they're printing. It's about as biased as can be.
So that's one of the things I wanted to talk to you about as well. You wrote a column in the Chicago Contrarian about officers. And I've been saying this since St. George Floyd, blessed be his name, died from a drug overdose in the custody of Minneapolis police, that the left, the Democrats calling for defunding of our police, the vilification of our police, you're going to be reaping what you've sown for years and years and years and years to come. This is what you did. You've destroyed policing in our country. And this column that you wrote is fantastic because I have Chicago police officers I'm friends with, many of whom have left and gone to the burbs because they don't want to go to jail for doing their jobs. And I say that with tremendous fervor. But what you're saying here is what I heard I'm a Chicago guy, but I live down in Dallas, and I heard this from Dallas police officers, that what you wrote here, the same damn thing's going on all over this country. The cops are no longer being healthily aggressive. They're no longer investigating matters, being close in links to people in the city, block by block. No more community policing, no more initiatives. They sit and they show up to clean up the mess afterwards, and they're not rushing anywhere because they don't want to go to jail for doing their job, and they don't want to be the next YouTube sensation, as you mentioned in this Chicago Contrarian article. Tell me more about this, what you've discovered and what you've seen in this pattern since all this unfolded, the defunding and the vilification of police, as you say, from the media, from leftists, and politicians.
Yeah, for sure. That's they don't want to be proactive anymore. They don't want to do proactive policing because they're being criticized every step of the way. So many times they're just handling their quote-unquote jobs, which are the assignments, the radio calls they're getting, and they're going call to call to call. If there's anyone who thinks there's any proactive crime prevention patrol going on in the city of Chicago and many other suburban police agencies, you're wrong. It's false. That's not happening. The Defund the Police movement, the officers have no incentive. They're being gutted by their own leadership at times, the public, politicians. Like I said earlier, politicians are gutting legislation to take things away from the police, to reduce traffic stops, to call them racist. So do you think officers want to make traffic stops when our legislators are passing laws to not allow you to do it, and then they're calling you racist?
Right.
I have news for you. The officers are just stopping who's violating the law. There's this thing out there that they think that policemen sit and wait for a certain person or a certain car to go by. That's false. It doesn't happen.
It's the way they write things and do things. It's like they envision Chicago police officers, Riverside police officers, anywhere in the metropolitan area, Chicagoland area. It's like they wake up and they're just drooling, slathering, thinking about how can I kill a black person today? That literally is how they portray our officers. Like they're literally hunting people down and murdering them in the streets. Tell me something. Yeah.
You know, Chris, and this new word that the media loves is pretextual traffic stops. Which let's get the facts out there. Pretextual doesn't really exist, and when they took the pretextual, the United States Supreme Court said it's legal what the police do to do investigative stops because the stop that they make is legal in the first place.
Yes.
If you stop somebody for not putting their turn signal on, just because you think it's a minor violation or it's pimpy or something like that,
doesn't matter.
Doesn't mean that it's not against the law. It is against the law. It's not pretextual.
The more you guys can stop, the more you interdict. The more you interdict, the more people you find with warrants, in stolen cars, with drugs, narcotics, sex trafficking, prostitution, all sorts of things. Hey, mass shootings, you tie this, the effect of attacking and demoralizing police, cutting them, defunding them. You kind of attach that and have a relationship with, you think it has a relationship to mass shootings. Explain that.
Well, you know, they're not the leadership. They're not asking the beat cop, and they're the ones. They're not asking the beat cop, the beat sergeant, the watch commanders around the street what to do, they're asking police leadership, and many times controlled by politics. If you ask the officers that day in and day out respond to these calls, every single weekend you wake up in Chicago and there's some mass shooting that happened overnight. If you ask them, how do we prevent these? How could we stop these? The officers that work the road would have really good ideas that could tell you what to do. But, you know, they treat the beat officers and they treat the beat sergeants. They're like, hey, you know what? You're just there to do the call. You're just there to clean up the mess. You know, they're wrong. They're wrong. These officers, these detectives that respond day in and day out know what's going on, know what's happening. The problem is that people aren't really coming to them anymore, and those officers aren't seeking it out because they're just demoralized. They're just, you know, you're slamming them every day.
And I've heard about them being demoralized and no longer rushing to the scene, no longer having active community policing, no longer being healthily aggressive, properly aggressive. And I mean, this has been going on since the death of St. George Floyd. Blessed be his name.
You know what, Chris? I had somebody tell me the other day I was totally wrong. They asked me about profiling, and I told them criminal profiling is legal. And they're like,
yes.
What are you talking? Like, are you out of your mind? I go, no, I'm not. Racial profiling is illegal. Criminal profiling is legal, and that's what we want officers to do, right? We want them to know what's right and wrong on the beat that they're patrolling.
Here's another one I want to ask you about, this resolution for the state of Illinois to try to prohibit federal agents from concealing their identity and not being allowed to have masks. First of all, they can't do this. They can't stop the federal government from doing this because they have supremacy, the supremacy clause. Isn't that correct?
For sure. The Chicago wants to pass some ordinance. Well, it's not going to supersede federal law. And, you know, I wish the ICE officers didn't have to wear masks, right?
Right.
800% increase in assaults and doxing and showing up at their homes and spray painting their homes and putting garbages on their lawn. Have you seen that there's an app out there that people can I mean,
CNN made sure to report on it and tell us all about it so that people can dox and go after ICE more.
Yeah. And, they are. I had somebody tell me they're not police. No, ICE is federal law enforcement.
That's exactly right.
They are police. That's
exactly right. They're federal police officers, if you will. So do you think it's a realistic request to wear the mask? Do you think it's okay in your book? And is it because of the violence against the officers, the threats?
Yeah, I like I said before, I wish they didn't have to, but there is huge violence against them, and it's not only violence when they're making arrests; it's follow-up violence, and it's threats to their families, and it's not just threats. I mean, we've seen in Texas that they've attacked facilities, and there was a local police officer shot in the neck. So this is real. It's not made up.
Let's talk about that for a second, because I live in North Texas, by Dallas, and that was in Alvarado, Texas, in North Texas, and that was the Prairieland detention facility where illegals are kept, and that was, I think, at least 11 people now who conspired and planned out to attack and murder ICE agents, and Benjamin Song was the ringleader. They just caught him. ICE just caught him on our federal officers did. And he's the ringleader, apparently. They had 2 or 3 at least AR-15s. They had several, like 5, 10 clips, magazines filled with ammunition. They showed up with fireworks. They shot fireworks toward the ICE facility. They also spray painted, F ICE and ICE Pig and stuff like that. And they did it intentionally to draw out ICE officers to then shoot and kill them and murder them. And they called the police, which is Alvarado Police. Alvarado police officer shows up. They immediately shoot at him. 20, 30 gunshots were fired. He returned fire. He was struck in the neck. Thank God he's alive, and he was treated and released. But they could have murdered him. And he returned fire. I think he killed one of them, if not mistaken. But they've been hunting him down. This is a real sick anarchy terrorist type of an attack. Then you got the one down in South Texas at the border, in the Rio Grande Valley, in McAllen, I believe it was, at the border. And that guy showed up there as a terrorist to try to murder. He shot at Border Patrol officers. They returned fire, and they killed him. So this is beyond real with our ICE officers, right?
For sure. I mean, these are planned events, right? I think in the one case you mentioned, one of the offenders traveled from Michigan. Am I not correct?
Yes. He
drove all the way. I mean, so these are planned events. They're targeted. They're well armed. They have bulletproof vests with them. I mean, these are attacks on law enforcement officers and law enforcement facilities. And when you're traveling from Michigan to Texas, you're going there with this plan. These aren't somebody.
It was a terror attack.
The paper says random. It's not random.
No, it was a terrorist attack.
Without doubt.
Because any threat of violence or any actual violence to achieve a political means or a political goal is terrorism. And these people are committing terrorism. And they're telling our law enforcement, let us know who you are so the terrorists that are on our side can come kill you, can come intimidate you. Never. By the way, are you surprised? Fox News' Bill Melugin went on a ride-along with ICE, and they purposely went to Sacramento in North California, and they said this out loud in one of the head of ICE or Border Patrol said this in one of his social media posts. We did it to show California, the sanctuary state, and Governor Gavin Newsom and everybody in California that we can go anywhere we want at any time. That's the supremacy. Number 2, they pulled up to a Home Depot and 11 guys ran, and they cuffed them and stuffed them, and the voluminous rap sheet of these people that they rounded up is stunning. You had a guy who was charged with assault. You have a lot of felons. I'll just leave it at that before I can find the rap sheet. Are you surprised that out of 11 Home Depot illegals rounded up, that I think 4 or 5 or 6 of them had a lot of felonies on their record?
No, I'm not surprised at all. In fact, I saw an interview where they're going after these convicted felons or felons themselves. Yes. Are they going to run across some that are just here illegal? Of course they are, right? So, I mean, you're going to run it. You do that on a patrol officers do that. You make a traffic stop and you don't know that the person is drunk at that time or has a revoked driver's license. You're going to arrest the person anyways, right? I mean, that wasn't your intent of stopping them. The same thing applies there. And I do know that they're going after convicted felons. If there are other illegals that get caught up in that, they're here illegally, right? They'll
Yes.
have, it's not that they're just targeting those individuals. They're targeting the felons, and other people are also being arrested because.
But I don't care.
The process.
I literally don't care whether they're felons or not. I want them out of here, and if they don't like it, it's Joe Biden's fault. We got to get as many millions of these people out of here as we can, because it can never happen again. And if we don't do that, then it will happen again and again and again, because it'll be the new successful way to flood this country with the third world, so that we can get a permanent Democrat class, and they will always be in charge. Now, one more quick question for you, retired Chief of Police, Riverside, Thomas Weitzel. Very grateful for your time. Actually, before I get to my last question, here's the rap sheets. Out of the 11 they rounded up at random Home Depot in San Francisco, Sacramento. Aggravated felon. Border Patrol says been booked in California jail 67 times since 1986. Rap sheet includes fentanyl trafficking. Another convicted felon fled and broke into a nearby apartment, assaulted the person inside. He has convictions for sex with a minor, battery on a spouse, carrying a concealed dagger, possession of a controlled substance, possession of narcotics, receiving stolen property, and first-degree burglary. Another previously deported Guatemalan aggravated felon. Another previously deported Mexican with prior arrest for driving without a license. Another Guatemalan with voluntary return removal in 2009 with prior arrest for trespassing and failure to provide ID. These are random men at a Home Depot. So, yeah, people. You think people should be hiring people at Home Depot to work on their house, see their daughter, see what they got in the house?
No, and I heard a quote here in Illinois from a resident who was the victim of a illegal that was here, and they murdered and stuffed their loved one into a garbage can. And he said, and a quote in the local paper recently was, "You think differently, America, if you're the victim. If your son or daughter they said your opinion will change." I thought to myself, well, there's a really good statement. Until you're the victim, you think it doesn't matter to you.
And her daughter's accused, accused of the illegal from Waukegan at the time. Now he lives in Chicago. In that bust, she was at a White House gathering for fentanyl trafficking victims and family members, and she knew about the Safety Act. She knew that the accused man who buried her or threw in the bleach and everything like that he was out because of the Illinois Safety Act, which really stands for Safe Thugs Act, make this thugs safe. And she told President Trump, she grabbed him on his way out, and he listened to her because she was at the fentanyl summit, and she told him what happened. She said that he was out in the streets, and Trump said, watch. 2 days later, rounded up by ICE. He's in custody in ICE right now because she told Trump. Literally, that's how bad it is in this state, right? In the state of Illinois, where each president has to get involved because a thug criminal who is intertwined with this potential murder, at least hiding a body, etc. Without Trump, that guy would still be walking the streets right now.
Without a doubt. And there's more to come on that case.
Yes, real quickly, Susan Mendoza, the state comptroller, third time over, is possibly going to run for mayor. You say the police vote, that she'll get the police vote. Why?
Well, I can tell you she is running for mayor. That's my opinion. She will run for mayor, and she's very popular amongst law enforcement. Always has been. There's nothing new. She's been supportive of law enforcement legislation in Springfield. She's pushed back on certain legislation, and she stands up and she publicly speaks about pro-law enforcement issues when it's not popular.
Chief Weitzel, retired, former police chief of Riverside. Thank you. Keep doing what you're doing, advocating for our law enforcement officers with tons of fervor and passion. We appreciate you, sir.
Thank you so much. Have a great day, Chris.
You too, sir. All right, coming up next, Obama manufactured the intelligence to create the 2016 Russia election interference narrative. That, plus, coming up at 8:38, we're going to talk to a guy about J.B. Pritzker. Once thwarted a coup. Why is he trying to start one on U.S. soil? Don't miss that at 8:38. The intel leaks, the intelligence being rigged against us, and Trump is coming up next. This is AM 560 The Answer. Chris Crockett for Dan Proft.
Connect with Dan and Amy using the AM 560 mobile app. Download it today at 560theanswer.com/mobile.
Sign up for the AM 560 Answer Advantage to get early alerts on event ticket sales, special discounts, and contest opportunities. Sign up today at 560theanswer.com/advantage.
Hi, I'm Ken Mariotti, owner of Woodland Windows and Doors, a third-generation family-owned business since 1969. We know you're bombarded by choices when shopping for new windows or doors, so we're inviting you to experience the Woodland difference. For decades, we have been transforming living spaces with Marvin Windows, a fifth-generation family business. Marvin replacement windows have been known to increase the warmth of your cold rooms by 10 degrees. Think about that, 10 degrees warmer.